At the beginning, everything sounded simple. Trump promised to solve the Iran problem quickly and forcefully, stop its nuclear program, break the rule of the Ayatollahs, and restore American influence in the Middle East. It sounded like the classic story of power politics. America walks in, hits the table, and everyone suddenly understands the rules. But reality was much less cinematic. After several months, Iran had not collapsed, the nuclear program had not disappeared, and the United States was no longer leaving this conflict as a clear winner. Instead of a quick victory, Washington found itself looking for a compromise with the same regime it had promised to break. So the real question is simple. How did a plan that looked so strong on paper begin to fall apart?
The Iranian problem was never new. For years, the main issue was Iran's nuclear program. Washington wanted to prevent another nuclear power from appearing in the Middle East. For Israel, this was also a security question, because Iran was seen as a direct threat. At first, they tried diplomacy, but the negotiations failed. And when diplomacy failed, the logic became very simple. If talks do not work, use force. The first strikes targeted Iranian nuclear facilities. Israel attacked several sites, and then the United States joined in. Publicly, the operation was presented as a major success. The facilities were damaged, the program was supposedly stopped, and the mission looked complete. But soon, reports suggested a different picture. Some enriched uranium may have been moved before the strikes, and the damage was not as decisive as officials claimed. There was an image of victory, but the victory itself was already uncertain.
Then came the next escalation. Mass protests broke out inside Iran. Trump again threatened military action if the authorities began killing people. But when the protests were violently suppressed, the United States did not directly intervene. Then, another round of negotiations failed. This time, the American and Israeli operation became much larger. Strikes hit military sites, industrial facilities, and government targets. The goal was not just to damage infrastructure. The goal was to make the Iranian system crack from the inside. And this was the first major mistake. Washington seemed to expect that if the pressure was strong enough, the elites would panic, the population would rise, and the regime would begin to collapse. But Iran did not work that way. Even after heavy strikes, the government did not fall apart. In some ways, it became stronger. External attacks often do not divide a country. Sometimes they push people closer to the state, even if they dislike it.
The second surprise was Iran's response. The United States had overwhelming air power. It could hit factories, military bases, and nuclear-related infrastructure. But Iran still had its own tools: missiles, drones, attacks on American allies in the region, and most importantly, pressure around the Strait of Hormuz. A huge share of the world's oil and gas passes through this narrow route. Once Iran threatened that point, the war stopped being just a military operation. It became a problem for oil prices, investors, allies, and global markets. That changed everything. Iran could not defeat the United States directly, but it could make the conflict expensive, unstable, and dangerous for everyone nearby. And that was enough. The war was no longer only about who had stronger weapons. It became about who could tolerate the consequences longer. For Washington, that was a much harder game.
The third problem was that the United States had no good next step. The air campaign did not break the regime. The protests did not become a revolution. Iran kept resisting. So what came next? A ground operation. And that was the nightmare scenario. Iran is a huge country with difficult geography, strong security institutions, and a population of more than 90 million people. Entering Iran might look simple on a map, but in reality, it could become a long and painful war, the kind of war that leaders later describe as a mistake. So Washington faced an uncomfortable truth. It could continue bombing, but that would not guarantee victory. Or it could expand the war and risk getting trapped. That is when negotiations became the only realistic exit. Pakistan became a mediator. Both sides started with maximum demands, but step by step, they moved toward a ceasefire and a preliminary agreement.
The result was not a final peace treaty, but a memorandum. Iran promised guarantees that it would not build nuclear weapons. The United States agreed to end the war, begin lifting sanctions, and unfreeze part of Iranian assets. On paper, this looked like a compromise. But for Trump, that was exactly the problem. He did not start this campaign to get a compromise. He promised a victory, a clear one, a fast one. Instead, the Iranian regime survived, kept a negotiating position, and forced Washington to deal with it. So who won? The United States damaged Iran badly. Its military and industrial infrastructure suffered. Its nuclear program was likely pushed back, but the main political goal was not achieved.
The regime did not fall. Iran also did not win. It suffered destruction, economic damage, and more internal pressure. But it survived against the world's strongest military power. Now, there are three possible futures: a real deal, a frozen conflict, or another war. And that is why this story matters. Trump wanted a quick victory, but Iran was not a door you could simply kick open.